Anyway, welcome everybody for the 2026. It's even hard to say the number. Talon Spring Launch. I'm grateful to everybody for coming out, to all our stakeholders, to the readers, to the authors, to our brilliant and hardworking staff, and a lot of other people around the world who support Talonbooks. And also, I guess I'd be amiss not to mention that we get real government funding, real support federally, Canada Council, Canada Book Fund, provincially, Creative BC, BC Arts Council, and the tax credit, and a few other things here and there, without which there would be no Talon. So, and I should also mention, perhaps many of you know this already, but one of the most significant pieces of funding for publishers in British Columbia is the tax credit. So basically you get 90% of your Canada Book Fund grant when you file your tax return. You don't have to pay taxes, that's just how it comes through. And it was always something that we had to lobby to have. Matea, she's out there, she will speak to this, but something we had to lobby to have renewed on an ongoing basis. So we spent, I don't know, well nigh 20 years now fighting to have it renewed on a permanent basis, and it sucked up a lot of our energy and our ability to sort of seek other things. And this year, the tax credit was made permanent. So yeah, it's a big moment. BC Book Day in the legislature last week and in the budget. And, you know, not to throw any shade on the film people, but the film tax credit has been permanent for 20 years or 25 or 30 years, and it keeps going up. So I don't think that we've asked for too much to make ours permanent. But anyway, great day for publishers like myself. Woohoo! Yes. So, have I thanked everybody? Oh. Back to the brilliant Talon staff. Thank you so much. I just really want to thank our team. It's fairly tough conditions in the outside world, so I know you all know. People say, how are you? I say, well, but the context kind of sucks. And the team have just executed spectacularly well. They've been brilliant, and we've done so much good work to try and keep the press on the rails. So just to give them a thank you. We have a big program tonight. We have more poets than usual. You guys are going to be dragged deep into the darkness, so I better get out of here. And I'm going to introduce our MC for tonight, who actually is a man who needs no introduction, Jeff Derksen. I mean, come on, he's been a Talonite for a long time, probably 20 years longer than I have, and I've been a Talonite for 20 years, so that's a long time. And Jeff has published a lot of books with the press and on the poetry board, and he's a prophet, Simon Fraser, and he's a bon vivant, and I understand he's kicking them over the stones of the poetry scene in New Orleans these days. Anyway, he's a wonderful human being. He's always a great MC. I give you Jeff Derksen. Oh, I forgot one thank you. Mac and the Vancouver Opera Society. Mac does the sound. He does so much, helps with the venue. When we first started coming here, he loaded the books in for me. He still does. And I think it's because he thinks I'm old, but I am so grateful.
Thanks. I didn't know Kevin was going to introduce me, so I was simply going to start by, I'm your host, Jeff Derksen. I'm a published poet. Just to weave us into the red thread of today, because today, of course, is amongst the things that are going on with the moon that I was told about. It's also May Day. So happy poetry launch, happy May Day. And I want to start by reading a stanza of a May Day poem from Louis Zukofsky, which was part of his lifelong poem, A. And this poem was first published in 1938 in New Masses magazine. So just one stanza. March, comrades, in revolution, from higher unchanged, till your gain be the freedom of all, the world's May Day. May the freed of all earth. Louis Zukofsky in 1938, still echoing with us. So I'd like to consider that as an acknowledgement of work and labor, which is something that we all share, even if we don't want to. And I'd also, of course, like to begin with a land acknowledgement. And I think one of the most brilliant land acknowledgements that has happened was a brilliantly funny press release that was sent out by for chiefs of this unceded territory. And it was when a conservative, I think that's still the name of the party here in BC, an MP called Aaron Gunn went a bit off the rails. And they sent out on this press release, yesterday on social media, the MP, Aaron Gunn, appeared to crash out and demand to speak to the manager of land acknowledgements, a position that observers confirm does not exist. Chiefs whose territory make up the riding had 2 words for the MP: chillax, bud. Land acknowledgements have never seized private property, canceled a mortgage, repossessed a pickup truck, or altered a single title deed anywhere in Canada. They are simply people recognizing the history of the place they are standing. No one is going anywhere. Canada will survive the brief moment of honesty. Until then, the chiefs across the region continue to reassure the public that land acknowledgements have not to date resulted in any land back. And that's from Chief Haggis John Hackett of the Talonbooks Nation, Chief Darren Blandley from Hamalko Nation, Chief Nicole Rempel from Comox Nation, and Chief Kevin Pacey from Kalus Nation. And tonight, this event is hosted by the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples, whose unceded and very much alive territories we stand on. These unceded ancestral lands have hosted a lot of poetry, and I'd like to thank the hosts and the land for that. And as it is May Day, I'd also like to note that we are in East Vancouver, which used to be a predominantly working class area, but housing prices of what we settlers call real estate pushed people out. Tonight, we'll celebrate a new season of remarkable books from Talonbooks. Talon, moving from being a magazine to a press in 1967, the same year that Canada celebrated from moving from being a colony in the so-called Commonwealth to a settler colonial state. It was a big celebration in 1967. Talon was in another section of town more west, but it did make its way to the east here, just off Clark Drive, over a metal foundry. Now it's back in its industrial area in the south, just off the so-called Fraser River. So Talon has had a deep history in the city, in poetry in the city, and also within Canadian literature, having published poets and writers who challenged, opened, and transformed this literature that was supposed to help define a nation. But many Talon writers, many of who are in the room tonight and will be reading, made sure that Canada could not do this so cleanly, painting a coat of eggshell white over the land in history. Eggshell white is the favorite color of real estate, and by real estate, I mean the settler colonial state. So tonight, we have a fabulously rich roster of poets who continue this rich legacy of literature, of poetry and narratives, saying no to eggshell white, no to real estate, no to bosses, no to settler colonialism, and all the while saying yes to many things, affirming and imagining so many aspects of life, some of which we haven't yet discovered. So the program will be Taryn Hubbard, Jónína Kirton, Jenn Ashton, Danielle LaFrance, and then we'll take a break and come back with George Bowering and Nicole Raziya Fong and Elee Kraljii Gardiner. So our first reader is admirably, and we have 2 poet laureates in the room, is admirably the poet laureate, the inaugural poet laureate of Chilliwack, a city I'm extremely fond of. And a place where a lot of, let's give it up for Chilliwack, a city that can never quite get enough love. Taryn is the author of Desire Path, which I consider to be one of the great urban books that give us a sense of Vancouver and its areas. Also the very good best friend, and now Beautiful Unknown Future. So she also not only lives in Chilliwack, but also that poet laureate there. She lives with her family there. From Beautiful Unknown Future, there's a few lines that completely match up to May Day. A very beautiful one that I'll just use as an introduction to Taryn. Severance pay is the sample-sized perfume of self-determination. Please welcome Taryn Hubbard.
much. Wonderful. I think I'll go like this. Thank you so much, Jeff, for that introduction. Yes, I've been named the Poet Laureate of Chilliwack. I don't know what it means yet, but thank you for all your enthusiasm. I appreciate it. As Jeff mentioned, I'm coming here from Chilliwack. I grew up in Surrey, which is a lot of my first book, Desire Path, which is in the back, is about. And just to acknowledge, in Chilliwack, I'm from the Chiqualic and Sumath peoples. So, beautiful unknown future. Thank you so much to Talonbooks. It was such a pleasure working with your team. I felt like we worked on this, and I really feel like we got to a good spot with it, and I appreciated everyone's feedback. So I shall jump in. The first section that I'll read from you is from a section called Sweetie. And as Jeff mentioned in my introduction, I live with my family. Among that is my daughter. And she's so curious, and she's always wondering about, communication. So I'm trying to explain things to her, and I don't think I'm always doing such a good job. So this idea of Sweetie kind of came from my thoughts of trying to work through working and being creative and trying to make space for those things in my life. The clerk's name rhymed with arrhythmia. She told it to us this way so we'd never forget. I felt like she was explaining it to me among the rats, all the way at the back of the grocery store pharmacy. Closing in 5 minutes, woman with the mini jug of strawberry milk and the sack of frozen water chestnuts, pay attention. Sweetie squeezed my icy hand, and I was incognito again, like I'd been good at doing, so good at containing and centering within me for ages. This could be it. For the most part, it's the indignation surrounding me online now that's become electrified and pulled out and sliced apart and shattered and wound back up only to be fed back to me at double the advertised price. Get a plumber's cert watching YouTube. Take a microcredit in professional meddling. Make mountains of crypto right from your home. Arrhythmia, arrhythmia. Please come forward with your paper number. Show us how long you've waited. Her name, a relief of knowing something unusual exists inside me, like a cold splash, a spoonful of overnight mush sprinkled with the flavor packet of the season. Swift validation and bittersweet understanding all at once, all completely overwhelming and overstimulating. This could be it. I had a friend once who could teach a course on just about anything, and it wouldn't even be an exaggeration. She was truly that remarkable. It was something that drew me to her initially. If she asked me for a website testimonial, I wouldn't hesitate to follow through and actually give it. Maybe I'll just write one someday without being asked, because people like that do exist. There are people who write online reviews as an extension of their reflective practices. Consumer goods, personal services, fast food, gas stations, face masks. Give my old friend a whiff of a subject, and I'm serious, any subject, and she could figure out how to make someone else believe she was an expert brimming with scarce and valuable information about it. She taught me how to make my sourdough starter and the crypto investment strategy that I can no longer give energy or light to because of what happened. I don't blame her. Once a year, we took a drive to in her slick autonomous vehicle up the coast to breathe the air and refocus our attentions. We stopped after the 4th recession because it was harder to be optimistic given the situation. Financial downturns kept happening, and when things keep happening, it gets harder to believe we can just jump over the cracks while holding our breath and thinking positively to avoid catastrophe. The ocean knew us, could sense us coming. The water would curl up around our ankles once we stepped in, no matter the pressure I put on the sand beneath me. It was startlingly cold at first, but I always got used to it, even though I've never liked cold water. The Pacific felt good on my body, but then I felt like I didn't deserve to be so memorable to this expansive body of water on a planet this large where I was merely a speck of dust in time. When I dried my feet, I tried to return every drop of salt water I took by shaking my body over the surf. My friend took selfies, good ones, better ones than I ever took. She then turned her phone quickly over to me. I wonder how she will preserve her data of my likeness. The files were never shared with me. That photo she took of me wandering out into the ocean as the big wave came to knock me down and spit me back to the shore, anyone with mercy would delete it. Okay, this is my May Day poem, I think, today. I've started waking up even earlier, thinking it'll be easier to travel back in time if the process clearly happens outside of regular office hours. Zero tolerance for time theft, boss says, even if I'm going backwards and recycling the time I've already labored. One would think this activity, essentially upcycling my past production, would be beneficial to this machine, but here I am, early bird, out of necessity as ever. As it stands, the passages back and forth are bleak and tight, not nearly as luxurious as I was sold in the sponsored ad. I can manage this disappointment inwardly, but it crosses my mind every once in a while when I get stuck, and it's a minor piss-off. I didn't sign up for this inconvenience, not exactly. I only wanted to know more about myself by redoing everything I did a poor job of the first time, so my life could more follow closely the ubiquitous hero's journey. There are so many things I did when I should have known better. The stakes were higher than I understood. Tiny channels that leak from above and reek of urine from below. There's nowhere to look but up, was what my grandma always said. I see now she, as someone from the silent generation, was training me for a future that looked something like this one. I remember her as a good ghost rattle now. I appreciate the touch, this connection with me, with my past, memories and interpretation of moments that are woven through me with a fiber I can't physically touch. And to end my reading, I'll skip ahead to a section called Strangers. This section is a little bit more personal, and so I'm happy to share them with you tonight. Memory is suspicious of time. There's too much of it. It's hard to process in meaningful ways. What do all these things we remember amount to anyway? Each day is an opportunity to reevaluate what came before, and this is both wondrous and nauseating. There are pretty things I remember, precious moments I could never explain to another person, and that's what makes living gorgeous and painful. The flat giraffe Stuffy rescued from a rainy parking lot, the pink stitches unraveling more with each wash, and it's still so important to the family we celebrate his birthday. The white lilacs that were part of everyday life many decades ago. I wonder what life will be like for my children with the world warming, temperature increases locked in, and still, I appreciate the fragments of our everyday life together while we can. I'm working to improve my patience and reflection. I write down what comes to me, then put it in a freezer beneath something I'll never eat, but will resist composting so it stays with me for many years. The fragment of thoughts become more solid, more of an object, something I must work around to fit new things because it will not fade away. What I wrote. When someone comes on too strong, they are showing their hurt. Proceed with the utmost caution only. Share ideas freely. That's what we all must do, and listen deeply. What is the best way to move forward into an unknown future? Head first, feet first, heart first. I read that a mother's brain is chemically changed for years after labor, years. We can be total strangers with who we are and who we were, yet mingle with them both like specters we don't see, only sense. And hidden among all this, there's the self of the future, a beautiful unknown thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Taryn. I'm glad that you read from Sweetie. I found that a really compelling section of the book. Our next reader is Jónína Kirton, and she's an Icelandic and Red River Métis poet who was born in Portage-la-Prairie in Manitoba, Treaty 1. They're one of the co-founders of Indigenous Brilliance, and she currently lives in New Westminster, BC, on the stolen land of the Hulkaminam-speaking peoples. She was 61 when she received the 2016 Vancouver Mayor's Award for an Emerging Artist, which I think is a brilliant thing, in the literary arts category. Her second collection of poetry, An Honest Woman, was finalist for the 2018 Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize. Her third book, Standing in a River of Time, released in 2022, merged poetry and lyrical memoir to take us on a journey exposing the intergenerational effects of colonization on her Métis family. Tonight, she's launching her new book, Save Your Prayers, Send Money. It's a book with a lot of intensity and textures, and these textures of pain and joy, of the body and of the medical system, and of the wellness industry, and of the complexities of Métis history and the present. It's also an acutely funny book, with a wry humor that points to the excesses and goofiness of various industries, spiritualities, and online knowledges of care and healing. So this memoir, or book of remembering and understanding, is not a singular story, and that makes it even more moving. Jónína. Yeah,
do you know how to do it? I don't. Hello, everybody. Funny thing, I have bifocals, but for some reason it's easier to read without them. I don't know why. Hi, everybody, and welcome. Oh, I'll let you know, I just got home from a trip to Quebec City where I was a judge for the National High School Poetry Competition. Yeah, talk about fun and high energy, and I just got home early yesterday morning and I'm really tired. So I want you all to know, have you ever watched the show Awake? It's a game show on Netflix, it's new. They keep you up for 24 hours. And you're counting quarters during those 24 hours, and then you do a bunch of things. Well, that's about how I feel right now. And that is kind of life with fibromyalgia, which this book is partially talking about. So it takes many hands to make a book. This beautiful cover, Les always does wonderful covers. The artwork is from a dear friend, Jake Oldale. And the editors, there was Betsy Warland and Ryan Fitzpatrick and Catriona Strang. So, you know, a lot of people have gone through this book, and including myself a million times. And yet I still found something today that I think I would have changed. Not that anyone did anything wrong. I just noticed that I should have probably put a line break there. Anyway, but eventually you have to just hand over the book and let it have its own world, out in the world with everybody. So I'm going to start reading from, I'll read one poem from each section. So the first section is called The Wounding, which is really looking at how one might end up with chronic health conditions like mine. And this poem is about being mixed, and it is actually looking at both the blessing and the curse. I've been blessed to live in many different lands, and each one of them is in me, and also places that my ancestors lived is in me. And it's a nod to Betsy's A Person of Between that she uses. It's called A Person of Between. My body, a place of convergence, followed by rupture. Prone to shaking, there are days it cannot contain both sides. In my feet, flatlands, and in my ears, the roar of the buffalo. Most days I can still feel the prairie wind, the dust in my nose. At night, I dream of thunder. Feel lightning hit the ground, the heat of the Icelandic lava slow crawling throughout, while the northern winds bring coolness to my skin. At night, an unfurling of spine, the crackling of ice. If I close my eyes, there are visions, the night sky dancing. My body, a place of convergence, followed by rupture, prone to shaking. There are days it cannot contain both sides, and yet it must. And the second section, and I'm glad you picked up on the humor, because I was worried that people would think I was just being mean. I'm not being mean. I save your prayer, send money. I do believe in prayer. I'm just saying, like, you know, for people who have a lot of money, instead of saving all your money, save the prayers and send some money, but or also send, it's poetic. So also, so it's a layered meaning. So also, you know, money can be come over and do the dishes, you know, make a casserole. It's about help, practical help. So I'm afraid that people start sending me money, so don't worry. There are other things. So this one is called It's Complicated, and it looks at a bit of all the different health things that have happened to my body. It's quite the journey with this body. It's complicated. The thirst for honesty became a twinge between bones made brittle by lack. Osteo offered his explanation. Big toe pain, orthotics, feet inflamed, Achilles tendon, calcification in neck. Unheard of, or simply rare, no treatment offered. Silenced again and again, making it necessary to swallow big gulps, air bubbles, all that was dismissed traveling bowels, impacted, until I threw up every day for 30 days. Tests revealed esophagus burning red becomes a concern. Acute diagnosis, misdiagnosis, something missing, stings, shows up in other places. Sores in mouth, places I shall not name. Swelling, so much swelling, until CBD, an answer to an allergy. Expensive diets offered as first defense against the enlarging. Next comes the cascade of online suggestions. Yes, you've had them, eh? Have you tried yoga? Lemon cleanses, turmeric, all the I have a friend who was cured. She saw a shaman in South America. There was a ceremony. Ayahuasca, an answer you can't afford. I don't tell them that I once laid in a bed with chakra-colored pen lights created by a man of faith, John of God, celebrated con man, sexual predator, healer with many followers. Desperate to be healed, we all prayed, longed to be made worthy of wellness so that everyone would know we did try hard enough. So there's sections here, and then one of the sections is called Love and Marriage, No Baby Carriage. And that's because my husband and I found each other at 50 and 55 years old. And yeah, absolutely adore that man. And last one was the best one. So, but we've both, and he took care of me for so many years, and then now for the last 7 years, he's had quite a few health issues. So this is about that experience. But I want to read you a poem that's dedicated to him, and it's very short, and it's very special to me. It's called Ode to Love. What were you hoping for? Tell me it was me, or someone like me. All I know is for me, it was always you. It wasn't me for him always. I chased him a little. I don't think he minded, though. And the last section, you know, I don't like to leave people with just all the sad parts. I like to end on some of a more positive note, and not to diminish the things that have happened, but the end is more about the possibilities of the body and how we can experience life, whether we heal or whether we don't, that there's still magic out there. And it begins with a quote from Elee Kraljii Gardiner, who's coming up soon. So Elee, I love this line. It's from Trauma Head. The body is the bag that needs things. Is the bag that needs things. When I read that, I went, oh my God. So growing up, I was not taught to care for my body. My body was a bag that needed to perform and to look good. It has taken years for me to unpack not only why I was like this, but also to dig up the weeds of indifference that had been planted in my body and my psyche. I wasn't cared for as a child in some ways. I was really there to care for my mother, who I love dearly. But once I was born, I think she was really happy because she now had me, oldest daughter, and I was to take care of her. And this section is called To Be a Daughter. And you know, I loved caring for her in many ways, but it would have been nice sometimes. I remember asking her once, why didn't you kind of take care for me a little bit more? And she said, because you were always so independent. You would just push me away since you were little. So maybe it was my fault too. So, yeah. Being mixed is, I don't know which creation story to claim. Like, it's really complicated, and so I decided to write my own. So this last poem is that. It's called All My Relations, A Creation Story, and it's dedicated to Ingrid Rose over there, and Doris Miranda and Emily Conrad. And it starts with a quote from Emily Conrad's book, Life on Land. This new creature, with its organs, circulating blood, all of its interior life still undulating with its oceanic origins, muscles itself on land. So the idea is that we come from sea squirts. And if you have not seen any, you might want to look them up when you go home. They're just kind of like our gut from here to here. They hang around on coral, and they're still there. Some of them are quite beautiful. And that is our earliest ancestors, according to science. Unsure which origin story to claim, I choose science and the knowing held within. I am water made flesh, a wave rippling through time. This body still undulating remembers all who came before me. Viking shield maidens, buffalo hunters, voyageurs paddling 1 stroke per second. Loud voices spilling mischief into the air. This body contains the vibrations of every language my ancestors spoke. Going back to our beginnings, I learn we come from oceans. We are moving water brought to land. Some would say we have evolved when once we were sea squirts. Apertures at either end. We still take sustenance in through the pharynx, I don't know if I can pronounce that right, and process it in our digestive system, and out the other end it goes. Once we had few predators, could self-fertilize, and now we are moving water brought to land. Some would say we have evolved when once we could clone ourselves, regenerate from fragments. Some would say we have evolved when once we gathered in colonies, attached ourselves to coral, swayed together in the ocean. Perhaps this longing for closeness is memory of water reverberating through our cells. I know that my ancestors arose from water. My fluid self is held within this continuum. I am a wave rippling through time, water made flesh, one with everything. Thank you.
Thanks, Jónína, and thanks for reminding us that some things really are worth chasing. Our next reader is Jenn Ashton, who is an award-winning Squamish author, visual artist, filmmaker, and historian. Thank you. Her book of short stories, People Like Frank and Other Stories from the Edge of Normal, from 2020, was a finalist for the Indigenous Voices Award, and her personal essay, Qualifying Hymns, was a finalist for the 2024 National Magazine Awards. Growing My Way Home, this book from Talon, is her new work of autofiction. It's a book that I greatly enjoyed reading. Its direct style reminded me in a very positive and vibrant way of writers like Lee Maracle, Helen Potrobenko, and George Riga's earlier work, I think, in some ways. So it really kind of found a place in my heart because of that. And it takes us through the social landscape of the 1970s and the 1980s with all the music, grit, fashion, toil, surprise, struggle, poverty, bad hippie gender politics, and Indigenous joy. There was one line that struck me as perhaps a great introduction from the book. Some people call me a live wire because I go around zapping people. Jenn Ashton.
Greetings from Stelkaya. This is an excerpt entitled White Blotter High from my new book, Growing My Way Home. It's the day before Christmas Eve, 1978, and I laugh as I realize I'm dipping my French fries into chocolate pudding, which I thought was gravy. The girl next to me must have heard me laugh and calls out something cryptic I can't understand. Her voice echoes against the walls outside our cell block. Then she gets loud and shrieky. It sounds like she's dropped to the floor, writhing in pain. I call through my bars for somebody to check on her, but it's late, and the lights are off in the main hallway, and nobody comes. I wonder if there's anybody out there. It's so quiet. She's coming down off something hard, I'm sure of it. I turned 14 a month ago, and tonight, with my elbows resting on cold steel bars, I'm thinking about some of the choices I've made. Even though I'm still blasted out of my mind, which is muffling my senses and making this cell feel like a womb where the light seems to pulse with each breath I take. But I'm sure it's just the drugs. I can see a bit of taped up tinsel garland in the hall, but the holiday itself doesn't register. Here I'm truly alone, and I wonder for both of us what our tomorrow will hold. My cell block neighbor moans by way of punctuation. 24 hours earlier, I'd been standing outside my apartment block with a smoke, shivering in my jean jacket because I'd sold my warm winter coat for smoke money, when some guys I knew drove up in a car. "Wow, great car. When'd you get it?" I asked the driver, bending down to look inside. Not many of my friends were old enough to drive, so a car was news. These weren't super great friends, but I'd been dating Frank, the passenger, if you can call it dating, and I was happy to see he was out of juvie, probably for the holidays. We kissed quickly through the half-open window. I was the one he called when he was on a weekend pass or if he went AWOL. The guy driving was his identical twin brother, Alex. Both had bored straight blonde hair, bangs, and crooked smiles, as if they had to put their halves together to make a whole, and each spoke with his own version of a lisp. I didn't know the other two guys in the back, but they were part of the usual gang, and I'd seen them plenty at house parties on the res. "We borrowed it," the driver said, still looking straight ahead, stony-faced. "Cool." I nodded, misunderstanding, thinking they'd borrowed it from one of their foster moms. "Get in, we're going for a drive," Frank said, opening his door. "Okay." I thought he meant around the block, but then it dawned on me that the car was hot, and I changed my mind. I shook my head at Frank, pushing myself away from the car, but he smiled his charming half-smile and said it wouldn't be for long and that I would never get in trouble for it. So I got in, climbing over his seat that he'd pulled forward as far as it would go, and I fell in between the two guys in the back. I never thought too hard about consequences, not the immediate ones, the later ones, and especially not the far later ones. My thought pattern consisted of planning to meet my immediate needs, warmth, food, and smokes, and although I felt a pang in my chest and I knew it was wrong to get into that car, what else was I doing today? I'd been standing around waiting for something to happen, for something to change in front of me, guiding my steps this Friday morning. I had nothing to do and nowhere to go, and had just been waiting to see where the wind would blow me. This event in front of me already met two of my immediate needs, so an easy decision. I was the living pinball wizard, or rather, maybe just the ball endlessly being pinged this way and that at the hand of whoever was playing. Most of my days rolled out the same way. I didn't have many friends, and the people at my new school weren't close. They already had tight crews by the time I'd arrived halfway through the school year. There was a lot of trust involved in those relationships, and I hadn't proven myself, even though a few people vouched for me. It was called an alternative school, full of kids who also got into some bad stuff while waiting for that wind to blow them somewhere. Lots of them were fresh out of juvie, and while some were serious about school, there were a lot like me who just didn't know any better. A few kids had horrible problems and wouldn't last on the outside anywhere. I knew enough to stay clear of them, but to outsiders, we were all called JDs, juvenile delinquents. Although my grades were good and in some cases perfect, I couldn't think in my loud and fast high school, so I'd begged to be let into this school to hang out with people more like me. But even once I was there, I never felt like I fit in. There was no formal structure to this school, and I did need that. Instead, people came and went as they pleased, which didn't help, although I could sit in my homeroom all day writing poetry and receive perfect passing grades and lots of praise. Some kids were into art, so they were in the classroom next door making pottery all day. Some of the older kids were in life classes downstairs where they were learning how to live on their own and cook and have a bank account. They were the more hardened offenders and had been there the longest. Longer hair, more mature, with icy looks in their eyes. They would sit with us younger ones, or rather we would sit with them on the school's front step and smoke between classes. I can't recall for sure, but I think it was one of those older guys who got me selling acid soon after I started at the school. After I'd won that job, I became popular and moved up the ranks of coolness. People were looking for me, handing me money, and trusting me. Once a week in the back alley behind the school, I'd hand over the money to a Hawaiian guy I only knew as David with the glasses. And he'd pass me more sheets of acid that I'd sell for $5 a hit. Red dragon, green dragon, orange sunshine, blotter, window pane, purple microdot, and I was allowed to do as much as I wanted with no charge, so I did a lot. And with my $5 a day allowance, I often saved up for a week and treated my front step friends to a high. Our teachers didn't seem to mind when we'd miss classes because we were outside watching the clouds for hours. And then somehow or other our school got the nickname White Blotter High. School isn't where I'd met the guys in the car, though. They were already part of my life, and we'd already done some stuff together. But I fit in even more now that I was their sole source for acid. I was higher up on the rung of worth. So I got into that car, suddenly feeling pretty special that I was deemed worthy enough to even get in. Even though it was December, it was close and warm in the back seat, and I dozed on enough. By the time I was 14, I'd quit smoking pot. It made me paranoid and tired. I didn't like it, and I got sleepy from the smoke as the guys passed around joint after joint. We were heading out to make a score. I'd made scores before and had sat with bricks of weed on my lap and my jacket pockets stuffed full of tie stick, but I never had the added risk of a hot car, and that made me a bit more nervous. After driving for a while, we were far outside the city limits. I asked where we were going, but they didn't tell me, and I dared not ask anything else. It would have been uncool. Still, I was relieved when we got out at a roadside gas station. I went to the small adjoining restaurant. I ordered my regular fries with gravy and a coffee to wake me up. Then, after half an hour and almost zero conversation between us, the two backseat guys got up and left for the bathroom. 20 minutes went by and they still hadn't returned. Soon after, Frank told me to get up and get back to the car. So I got up and into the car where the other guys were waiting, and then we were suddenly on our way, flying down the road. It took me a while to grasp the fact that nobody paid the bill. Farther out of the city, the roads started getting snowy, but I didn't mind, and I dozed some more. I'm not sure why I didn't get carsick. I always did when I was a little kid, and my mom had to give me Gravol before each trip. My dad even had to put static straps, 2 pieces of rubber or something that hung down and dragged along the road as we drove on the back of the Volkswagen. But on this trip, I didn't feel sick. Just warm and tired, being rocked to sleep in the dark back seat for hours, lulled by Jethro Tull and the low, indistinguishable murmur of the twins in the front seat.
So that's a great excerpt from that book. You get that sense of the directness of the prose, the details. And just to clarify, I don't think that I bought acid from her in 1976. I think our high schools were far enough apart. Our last reader before we take a break, a beverage and book buying break, is Danielle LaFrance. Danielle is a poet and highly successful information malprofessional. Their commitments revolve around questions of liberation, resistance, and pleasure. LaFrance is the author of Species Being, Friendly plus Fire, Just Like I Like It, hashtag post-dildo, and Verbal Violence, tonight's launching book. LaFrance also co-created the reading and journal series about a bicycle and currently collaborates on the ad infinitum intertextual sound project, Yes, Sido. They reside on the still occupied and still unceded Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh lands. From my perspective, Danielle's extended practice as a poet is deeply social and collaborative, art into life in order to alter life. And I take her overall project, which I think you can look at as all of the forms of her work, as one practice, and as an expansive, sharp, funny, fuck you-y, love you-y, all at the same time. Verbal Violence is a book for anyone who has felt the rage of being managed, and what and who is not managed today. Verbal Violence is not a book for people who manage other people and try to control who has the code for the photocopier, or try to manage that the word genocide cannot be used or describe an act. I think the marketing slogan for the book would be t-shirts with one great line from it: such great utopian wrath. Although that might have been a Jethro Tull album, I'm not sure. Here's a little excerpt before I ask Danielle to come up from the Mayday section of the book, which is almost the whole book. In this day, this age of soft fascism, the people who manage other people manage whose feelings, whose shelves. In that day, the age of hard fascism, human relations were so moved by alienated workers, they bundled a feelings circle to cultivate softness. Danielle LaFrance.
Thanks, Jeff. I wanted to say a little something about how this work came to be without getting into the linearity of things, which is like very gleaned and gathered in the endnotes. Projects like Post Dildo and Yes Sido, collaboration with Josh Rose, are fully spurred by the reading group, by the Free School, this space where we might emancipate ourselves from any dependence on mastery or explication or genius. And verbal violence is no different. There's a lot of people to thank, and I'll thank Ryan and Katrina. And in this moment, I really want to thank Austin and Babs, who I think are there, fellow miscreants. And we spent the last couple years gathering at the Ivanhoe, getting maybe a little drunk, curating texts about work and anti-work, and about how much we hate work and what it has done to us internally and what it has done to our relations. And in this, we've also been, I'd like to think, imagining new use values towards a decapitalized future. Yeah, you can raise it up for me. Thank you. Thanks, yeah. From date, subject, internal to, there is no position if not written down, always storied, always factoid, what unifies the hadith of policies, what provides what time to break disrespectful responses, report serious comportment, develop diaphoresis in advance of a pool forms not safe for work. who sedulously avoids all political discussion in the workplace. People who manage other people are concerned with what works. A migration of orphan socks discharges who, what, evidences of good intentions over thousands of years, over who, what is everyone, if not forced thingification. What is beyond the point of instruction to decipher needle-fingering, double-talking, incorporated gravings, such great utopian wrath? There is paper on everyone, from date subject, external to who does not have a position, from date subject, reply external, any position can be found in a policy. What does not have a position, from date subject, internal to FYI, what serious comportment is under investigation? In the case of pickling a fist fight in some cunt's mouth, there is no position that does not orphan what precedes. In the case of procession, a summed account mummifies everyone in electronic artwork files. There are data entries on everyone, from date, subject, internal to who excuses who in this account. Who destines fiscal responsibility, prayer, performance, declines due to identity biases? Who says dialogue is open among the workers, the people who manage other people? Silence equals violence. Thank God for rhyming terms. Policy hisses out a cat's quick, strikes the censors of some cunt's mouth. Shut up, shut down, tough talk with, shut up, shut, tough talk with. Unifying policy discourse at the time of disseminating information is important to those rejected by the working vagaries. Who works all day scouring poppy fields for anti-work symbols? Who wouldn't move to Germany in 1933, rocking whose orange shirts? So sleep, so who can live echoing the Chad, calling out critics of Israel with Gorgaza and find out. And protesting is real, but silent on Congo makes meh wonder why. Spit, beetle juice, skin of lies, profane pound cake, afference kills. Who works all day past curfew? From date, subject, external to the policy is dogma. From date, subject, reply, external to anything outside of the policy is in contravention of the policy. The policy is dogma. From date, subject, reply, external to what is whose perspectival position. Anything outside of the policy is in contravention of the policy. The policy is dogma. From date, subject, reply, external to making lipstick love to depersonalized pillows. What is whose perspectival position? Anything outside of the policy is in contravention of the policy. The policy is dogma. From date, subject, reply, external to a working glass of Chardonnay clinks to a manufactured expiry date, making lipstick love to depersonalized pillows. What is whose perspectival position? Anything outside of the policy is in contravention of the policy. A policy is dogma. From date, subject, internal to the hadith of policies aggressively abolishes all divisions. Until recently, surveyors presented abolition as a synthetic chest. Who reimagines the worker, the managed, the slave constructed, the Colosseum's pastiche, the people without the privilege of work, slashed by the scrutiny of weaponized policies? Who benefits from hindsight, still returns to the labor market time again, strike line, in this day, that age. Who said who will be in whose sacred place when who is rerouted to a community mailbox? What is rerouted at this roaring time to communicate crucial taunts beginning with a hard G, beginning off by a handheld bubble machine? From date, subject, internal to the hadith of policies is directly responsible for the people who manage other people's survival. When the army are the police, the class traders are workers, the dedication of throwing whose self into the sea, the river, embodied throes of sides blindsided by bleach-bobbled blondes, deeply, deeply, narrow, narrow, deeply, deeply, narrow, narrow, from date, subject, internal to, in this day, this age of soft fascism, the people who manage other people manage whose feelings, whose shelves, and that day, that age of hard fascism, human relations were so moved by alienated workers, they unbundled a feeling circle to cultivate softness. A house of cards decays eventually, as do 52 positions to balance whose emotions, what's feelings. Everyday space-time possibility spoils multiple performances sorrowed away. Who is not whose self today, inciting an insurrection with flexibility, high-level learnings, cross-pollination? They micromanage time outside their jurisdiction, asking how many fingers are they holding up? Who looks ridiculous now, trading in pink pussy knitwear for a beefy watermelon beanie? From date, subject, external to who you want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to, you're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to, you take the city's money and snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to, you share your good intent. You take the city's money and snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to. As the story goes, kafias cause harm. You share your good intent. You take the city's money and snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to. The fact is, history predates what's current comforts. As the story goes, kafias cause harm. You share your good intent. You take the city's money and you snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to. The kafia causes harm depending on how tightly you tie both sides together. The fact is, history predates whose current comforts. As the story goes, kafias cause harm. You share your good intent. You take the city's money and snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without content. From date, subject, reply external to, while wearing one in commemoration on a future day of note. The kafia causes harm depending on how tightly you tie both sides together. The fact is, history predates whose current comforts. As the story goes, kafias cause harm. You share your good intention. You take the city's money and snort it. You're a natural born leader. You want to open your mouth without consent. From date, subject, internal to. Recently, the people who manage other people cried emoji over a toxic work environment they never bargained for. Such idolatry lit information what provides. The people who manage other people work an extra day per week and unpaid overtime. The people who manage other people obsessively check their messages. The people who manage other people are fearful of how the people who are managed perceive them. The people who manage other people are purposeless. The people who manage other people are without any teleological ends. The people who manage other people sound like trade unionists when they describe their midnight suffering. The people who manage other people do not sound like trade unionists when they remind the people who are managed who put money in their pockets. The people who manage other people draw blood from an anti-work thematic. The people who manage other people find their positions intolerable. The people who manage other people depraved for Sundays. The people who manage other people are bloated from a vegan tuna fish sandwich. The people who manage other people touch home base offline. The people who manage other people are bodily menacing. The people who manage other people are functionless. The people who manage other people are capitalism's BFF. The people who manage other people are apologetic, donning ill-fitted suits. The people who manage other people spin stories respectfully. The people who manage other people rely on compound nouns to eliminate words, to privilege concision, to signal efficiency while in the service of abstracting meaning from a workable reality. The people who manage other people micromanage their micromanaging. The people who manage other people diversity hire a white Christian's nationalist myth. The people who manage other people come out of a significant statistic. The day the ravers died, the people who manage other people are not hedonists, no pleasure to be had in a bite of dark vegan chocolate. The people who manage other people are once poor, become rich. The people who manage other people have children, have property, have equity. The people who manage other people's cri de coeur defeat of California's top cop. The people who manage other people are genociders. The people who manage other people are holociders. The people who manage other people once faggots in straitjackets. The people who manage other people self-regulate out loud in the name of self-improvement. The people who manage other people frequently touch up blonde face at the club. The people who manage other people when shot are cheered. The people who manage other people are pleasureless. The people who manage other people believe in no thing. The people who manage other people don't just respect hierarchy, but are totally owned by it. The people who manage other people are just doing their job. And I'm going to give the last word to Omar El-Akkad. To be accused of speaking too loudly about one injustice but not others by someone who doesn't care about any of them is to be told simply to keep quiet.
Thanks, Danielle, for reminding us on May 1st, International Day of the Worker, that there is no International Day of the people who manage people. Let's take an intermission, a book and beverage break. There's a beautiful spread of food and books and words at the back with a whole spread of all of the authors' published work from Talon tonight. So thanks, we'll be back shortly. I don't want to be the person who manages people, but if you want to micromanage yourself one more drink and come and sit down, we'll start the second half of our beautiful reading. Our first reader of the second half here is George Bowering, who'll be visiting us via video. We'll just let folks get settled. George Bowering has a long history with Talonbooks, and I see that Sticks and Stones is in the copy of that, the edition of that, which was, I think, was a reissue, because I believe that was the first poetry book that Talon published back in 1967. If that isn't right, let's just make it right and say that that's what happened. The official biography for George Bowering is that George Bowering was Canada's first poet laureate. He was born in the Okanagan Valley. He's one of the co-founders of the international poetry magazine Tish, which is a magazine that changed Canadian literature by internationalizing it in a sense. And Bowering has taught literature at the University of Calgary, the University of Western Ontario, and Simon Fraser University. A distinguished novelist, poet, editor, professor, historian, and timeless supporter of fellow writers, Bowering has authored more than 80 books, 80, including works of poetry, fiction, autobiography, biography, and youth fiction. Bowering has twice won the Governor-General's Award, Canada's top peer-reviewed literary prize. In 2019, he received the George Woodcock Lifetime Achievement for an outstanding literary career in British Columbia, and he was awarded the Order of British Columbia and is an officer of the Order of Canada. With this book that's being launched tonight, which I tremble a little bit because in the book it's talked about as George Bowering's final book, which I find hard to believe in many ways, particularly because of George's 80 books. Like, there's always a book, it seems, in very beautiful ways. But for this book, I wrote, I very much like George Bowering's new book of poetry, Pearl, because it is written in the style of a poet I very much like. That poet is George Bowering. But Pearl also echoes through with other poets as well, from the imagery and tone leading of the vowels that he is attached to through Robert Duncan, and also to the sly Robert Creeley line breaks that add so much to the book. Also Robert Croce's postmodernist humor, and actually to Louis Zukofsky's domestic sincerity runs through this book in a very beautiful way. And in that way, I also found it a very moving book, reminiscent of Creeley's later reflective works. And so it's hard to believe, as George and Jean say in this book, that it's the last book for George Bowering, particularly because George has shown how life and writing are not separated, how place and history are not separated, how language and thought are not separated. And for that, George has given poets a great gift.
Hi, poetry fans. I'm awful sorry I can't be with you tonight, but even if I was with you tonight, I wouldn't be able to read my poems anyway because I can't see. But my friend and former student is going to read some of my poems for me to you.
I'm Lorelei. So nice to be with you. 80. Having read a little late Zukofsky, he sent his mother 80 roses for her 80th birthday. Being a good widowed woman, she clipped 80 thorny stems. Never read any Zukofsky, never heard the name. Liked to read love stories, mainly dialogue. Read them in a little house that smelled romantic. Equestrian. Sure, she was an all-around athlete, but vulnerable. She went flying off the horse and landed on her head. For the rest of his life, and even now, 7 years past her death at 100, he wondered, was it a family horse or that high thing in gymnastics? He never saw her up on a horse, and as always, didn't get round to asking. And there's the second question. The mask. On a dusty autumn day, she smiled at her son through the bars of a catcher's mask, and he felt a shiver round his waist.
I just felt one now.
The first time ever a feeling he knew would be called romance, but not why. Athletes. His dad played basketball, so she did. At softball, he was a catcher, so she was. He grew up seeing his parents come home from badminton, from golf, from spike driving, from shot put. They played bridge, went bowling, did calisthenics, lived in small towns to do it. He died too young. She lived to be 100, winning that sad, sad race.
Ooh. I got shivers from that one too.
In the car, he and Willie in the back seat discussed a planet that rolled backward in its orbit. Where did the sun come up? Later he said, it's not the going there we don't like, it's the getting there. Willie said, no, it's not the getting there, it's the going there. So you see, they agreed. After a short silence in the car, his mother said she liked it better when they were talking about the hemisphere. And we'll go to divergences. George, do you want to say anything about
Divergences is a segmented poem that takes some poems by poets of the Romantic era, English, German, etc., and starts quoting them, but then runs away and diverges into my own stuff.
The frost performs. The frost performs its secret ministry round my heart, this organ cowering where its shelter so long comforted. Here now it is nearly always midnight by my grandfather's clock, unhelped by any winding. Any kind of rhyme keeps me awake, or maybe alive.
Gee, you know what? These poems sound better when you're reading them than...
The Western Waves. The western waves of ebbing day rolled o'er the glen, and I would say, rolled over me and where I stood, an aged man in flowering wood. Fall's awful light in spring salad days would whisper, could it speak of season 5, the longest and most dark. The awful. The awful shadow of some unseen power skids across my desk every metallic hour. I shine a light from my eye to no avail. The darkness hums as if to call my name, flowering like an unwanted poison from a garden I've never set boots in. I had a dream that was not all a dream, and woke from its bright light into darkness never seen. These mornings or afternoons when I nearly wake, I don't know where I am, though I never think it's the afterlife. Not a better life, not a chosen life, not a life I imagined when the teacher asked us to write about our personal futures. The one I didn't figure on included aiding maximum security prisoners in their efforts to write writing, including a gentle-seeming, very bad man who told me he had never in his life experienced dreaming, just heard about it.
Hmm.
5 years. 5 years have passed. 5 summers with the heat of one cooling oven resembling a heart trying its best. Empowering only random sections of a body older than most, a corpse still upright, or nearly so. That heart, a soft inland murmur, is a newly found friend in our game's late innings. We listen in the night for signs of life from one another, a beloved sister, a thankful brother. My heart aches. My heart aches and a drowsy numbness pains my body, a sort of center for my signs of life. Is that the word? I sleep at the gentlest urging, thin reminder of my drop out of consciousness, these weeks of lowering attachment to the air around me. When I woke, I floated up out of a place I knew nothing of, to utter a difficult jest, to show off, to persuade Jean I would last long enough to love her. Can you pronounce this so I don't get it right? Writing recibiendo?
Recibiendo.
Recibiendo. And tell
Yeah.
us what it means.
Well, it's when the bullfighter puts his sword out and lets the bull attack, and the sword goes in, and the bull actually kills himself by running up the sword. And that's a very difficult and adventurous way of finishing him off, because that bull's got horns as well.
So I'll just read the first 3 paragraphs of this. When my dad was playing catch with me and teaching me how to catch the ball, the first and most important thing he told me was, receive the ball, don't fight it. Don't stab at it, take it as the matador says. Recibiendo. When he was teaching me basketball and it came to dribbling, he said, let it come to you, don't smack it. Maybe such a principle occurs in other sports, but I've never spent much time watching or playing other sports. But I sure recognize it in composing poetry. Letting the ground ball come to you and then applying your skill to it is a lot like what happens when you're in the middle of composing a poem. In the better parts of how I learned, stuff came to me, words and the equally important punctuation, including line ends. I called this principle respect for the language, which is older than I am, more experienced than I am, more precise than I am. When they talk about a poet's gift, this is unbeatable. In baseball, as in poetry, you learn by reading and figuring out what previous players have done. Then you practice and practice. I would see how Bobby Dorr or Jack Robinson started to double play and tried doing it 100 times. My models were gone, but I was still working at it in my early 60s. Then I would ask myself why it seemed in my reading out loud of HD, she seemed so receiving of the words, and Robert Frost seemed like some old guy giving advice. And to close, grant me just one summer. Grant me just one summer, powerful ones, and just one autumn to forget it. Now or later, I expect less than the seasons I ask. Words I have spent a lifetime searching for. All right, I must accept whatever you toss my way. A gesture without care, a finger pointing down a road called curiosity.
That was exactly 10 minutes and you only lost one tooth. Pretty good.
That was kind of a mesmerizing Miltonian moment. Not only did George calmly become a dentist for himself in the middle of the reading and plunk it down on the table, but as Danielle pointed out to me, in the background there's this bunny staring at us the whole time, but also up against this very beautiful print, which I'm going to guess is, I don't think it's a Cayuga print, but it might be from that kind of period of that hard-edged work, lineated work from Canadian visual artists in the late 60s where this printmaking work was going on. So very beautifully, aesthetically, very personal for George to do that. And I think really, that book is filled with, I think, with the way that love can move through poetry. It's really an astonishing book in that way. Our next fabulous reader is Nicole Raziya Fong, who's the author of Oracle from Talonbooks in 2021, Perfect from Talon as well, Subtext, and other published works. Their work seeks to delimit and reconstruct immaterial ampoules of psychic experience, coaxing the incorporeal into inhabiting a more muscular physique. Their work has been translated, featured on the CBC, and long listed for the, I think for me this is the most beautiful award in Canadian poetry, the Pat Lowther Memorial Award, a poet I just think we can barely exist without, particularly this present moment. They live in Cho-Tsa-Gin and Mooniyang, Montreal, Quebec, Canada. In this new book, Subtext, they write, "Is it more authentic to write from language or from identity? While identity is expressible through language, it is not reducible to language." And for me, that's the core of the complexity and the beauty and the engagement of this book. Also that identity and language are continually multiple in subtext. Several of the poems, did the dog just growl at my commentary? I mean, I do lecture at university, but I've never been growled at. Several of the poems in this beautiful book are poetic dialogues, but all of the works are dialogic, resisting closure at the level of language, and I think also resisting closure at the level of capitalism and at the level of colonialism, all the time striving for connections. To my mind, the long poem Neutral Gray joins a wave of new documentary poetic practices that, as they put it, come from an errant archive. Nicole Raziya Fong.
Thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here amongst such incredible company. Thank you so much to Talonbooks and everyone who worked on this incredible book. Yeah, it's definitely a collaborative process, so it wouldn't exist without your expertise and care. So this is subtext. Neutral gray. There are hidden elements that are illegible or unreadable that exist in this book. I'm going to pass over it now, and maybe you can take a look later. Neutral gray. If the bed is a carrier of dreams, and that the sleeping are cast upon it, and either carried through or beside the event of their sleeplessness, the bed represents a site of fracture. If the bed, in good health, carries the dreamer to their waking state, the bed is a predilection of signs. As a kind of corresponding affliction, the immensity of my tears and marked delimitation of the bed, carrying me day after day to my waking state, appearance sinking down into unfathomable states in the scattered occasion of falling rain. This intersection causes the illegibility of the surface to multiply. Memory levels the spaces I've set aside for transformation. Transformation is bottomless, protracted by a thin film of memory. This film contains images which gaze eternally into themselves. The images expand and evolve in their own way, but this iterative fiction never forms a conclusive body. My relation to you does not surge into history, but remains caught in the eternal landscape of its own perceiving. Here, my name resounds between your lips, and I can hear your myriad voices speaking from somewhere deep inside me, words I have not yet uncovered, yet which continue to speak with the assurance and vitality of the living. Visible in the distance, a flaring of excess oil, a dark harbinger of smoke, signals perpetually between palm fronds and sugarcane fields. Bleached cannons point towards the sea. Just because something appears does not mean it has shown itself. What does not show itself is something that can never seem. Show itself as something it's not. With ease, I can picture myself as I am now, which is to say, changed, transformed. A well set in the middle of the veranda. From what I once was, or had previously been. This transformation exists without moral basis as a fact of my own physicality. Just as I once anticipated the person I would become, I now anticipate this person with greater assurance than before. I know this person consists of all I am lacking now, that this person can interpret the world in a way that I can't, that through this person what I am looking for will eventually be illuminated. I wake up in Montreal. It's late afternoon. From where I stand, the clouds seem tinted with an orange hue. I am born. I mean enactment in the sense of an expressive language, parting from metaphor, not to transform things into appearance, but to make them exist in the entirety of their being. Yet, while the uncovering destroys the deception, it does not discover anything authentically appearing, aren't. What we seem to be to others, I want to say, is only a part of what we are. I mean, it's not a part. I have become the surface between reflections. Scenes on heartbreak. The slow rotation of the moon within a dream. I don't love to doubt contingency. One must allow themselves this mercy, for in the world we are dissolved. One must allow meaning to enter, for in the world it is dissolved. One must remain open to meaningful encounter, for in the world it is dissolved. I set myself upon a path. I set myself upon the meaninglessness of the path. In this world I encounter you. We pass each other by. Our appearing in this world has no meaning, for in the world it is dissolved. The city. The city in which she appears as the limit of her own particularity or vacant immensity, her own city within the city. I believe my body fades like this and surfaces somewhere I can't follow, that it is still my body or my will or my surface. Skylar, you didn't visit the Alps? No, but I saw from the train they were black and streaked with snow. Something rises from the darkness concealed at the far side of the shore. I draw essence from the finite container of my willpower, while the mirror remains a reflection of color, action, and dream. I still coat my lips with suggestion, a satin finish. I subvert a mirror in its questioning, a story she orated to me as we were drifting in bed alongside one another. She held my body as it became increasingly smaller until I was the size I would have been at 8 or 10 or 12 or 13 or 17 or 21, delighted and terrorized as I was and still am. The warmth of the sun can be remembered even in its absence, the figure of flight even as one passes beneath it, the fraught defense of beauty that is survival and beauty as surpasses it. A green field. I can see cracks forming in the foaming absence of future. I can see this moment beginning to resemble change. I can understand this as a kind of authorship. In a fictive room fraught with becoming, I returned a word to its source, a thick aside of bone and renewal. I deferred to a poem. Crocuses began to gather. I sat for a while in the evident, but who should meet me there? Hours or days I spent there. 3 pillars intercede a tree. Us here, 2 pillars, a pillar. Adonymous. In preparation for winter, we cleared the dust into the sky above, abode. One is finite, and so our loss is representative. Each moment rising, inevitably alone, in an excursion of all other momentary relations. I am reminded of the warmth of your hands wandering beneath an inauthentic sun. Each moment is finite. A characterization of absence relates to certain exteriorities. Having once occupied mortality or relative permanence, you can never exit it temporally. This unchangeable condition remains indelibly. Materiality changes shape, but not form, and such concerns do not matter to non-existence. Releasing an expectation of forms, this is mortal impossibility. On the stage, she wears a mink cape. On the stage, she traces the incline of her upper lip. Her skin bends into the light. At the edge of the known, beyond which nothing appears. You love me, it is despite everything. To the extent I am able to fragment a quality of change surpassing the gem-like nature of its representation, I suggest faltering. I suggest material take place among futurity, hesitancy among fruition, and limit among fate. The damaging continence of outside and bright envy of our existence, allowing us to wield its shadow, we ascertain there is reason to do so. The bright envy of alongside, the damaging effacement of it. Discourse. A rare azure lake. What I remember is only a semblance. trees of association interspersed with language events. The evening seemed misted over because the gauze curtains at that moment were cast upwards into my gaze. Streetlights illumined the diction of surrounding cicadas, visibly striated and tinged with orange. The exceeding beauty of maple. Decay within abundance tracks this movement into future, tracks this undivided shame into a garden whose decays remains concealed behind an unrestrained sensual contingency, all of which feeds into the inescapable brevity of its flowers. I do not want this day to end, and so it is bound to end. Only by bringing hidden intention to the surface was she able to welcome me back into the room where clouds still cover the sun, where an ink print of a woman suffering or thinking or dreaming rests and waits. What color would you paint the sky? Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole, and thanks for reading that one section where you quote James Schuyler. I just found that a really effective, beautiful moment within the book. I really appreciate that. Our final reader for this fabulous launch that's tied into international solidarity of workers across the world is Elee Kraljii Gardiner, a frequent collaborator with choreographers, musicians, visual and sound artists, and of course also very international in all those collaborations, I'll note, and currently corresponding with nature via a series of durational art installations that investigate the law of thermodynamics and cultural ideas regarding the passing of time. She's the author of Traumahead, Serpentine Loop, and Sometimes Forest, the book she's launching tonight. She's also editor of the anthologies Against Death, 35 Essays on Living, and V6A, the monumental anthology of writing from Vancouver's downtown east side that was so important, co-edited with John Asfor. Elee directs the Vancouver Manuscript Intensive, a program pairing authors with mentors, and she's the 7th Poet Laureate for Vancouver. So we have 2 Poet Laureates in the house today, but I think that Vancouver is perhaps one of the most difficult cities in the world to be a Poet Laureate in, because it's a city that has such a long and fabulous history with poetry, having been instrumental in making shifts in North American poetry at many points. But also, it's a city that we try so desperately to love and keep waiting for that love to come back. Elee's book, Sometimes Forest, is a long poem that's made up of 87 one-page poems, a feat that I think at one point was enacted specifically by design. There was one line that I thought maybe was going to go over onto another page, but it was crammed in there to make it all one-page poems. So very serial in its nature, very evolving, unfolding. To my mind, it's a book that joins the long project of taking the subject out of what Charles Olson called the Western box. And it aims to overcome the epistemological separation of the subject, of that Western boxed subject, from nature, particularly trees. For, as we all know, trees, like crows, are smarter than us. A line that stuck with me that resounds or reverberates throughout the book is theorem. What is kind to the body is kinder to the woods. And the one and only Elee.
Hi, everybody. I can't see you at all. This is amazing. Jeff, thank you for that warm introduction. And I want to start by saying hello to the people in the digital world that are with us, and to say that my experience of coming into the fold with Talonbooks has been so positive, so warm, so careful. And so thank you to Kevin and Vicky. Thank you to Spencer. Thank you to Aaron, to Ryan, and to Katrina, who Years and years of me coming to these events to find out about what was going on in the literary community, coming to the Talon launches, I would hear poet after poet get up and sing Katrina's praises. I get it. It is exquisite to be edited by Katrina and to be guided and shepherded through. So thank you all for making this experience so great. And thank you to Les, too, for the cover, which I'm just nuts about. So it's also Beltane. So let's go into the forest. Let's go into the forest. This compilation of forest images is one that citizen poet Danny Rodriguez made for me. And I just want to gesture to the fact that many of you in this room and beyond are people that I have walked the woods with repeatedly. Others I've walked the cities with, and others I've walked through words with or walked through the waves with. And all of you are part of my literary ecology. Scape. Scrape the hair back. Drag nylon over knee. These are weapons of intimacy to use against myself. An armor of woven loneliness. A cape shellacked against the rain of disappointment, fierce and lorn. Farther into the driplets and fallen trunks and foaming fungi, suggestion softens something inside me. A molting. Crisp shell undone, sodden. What pushed me here with tart tongue and clotted purpose, all my anger for you, draped in wetted silhouette, deflated. And under the melted carapace, little pinkings, little growths in the clearing, disclose a healing. A clock is a cloak and a bell. My hand, the device that clangs the iron of the day, calling to you, to you, to you. How heavy having shoulders. Practice shuffling what I contain in the swap of noon for night. Minutia in a rack of empty bottles. Drinking is tuning the transistor, is trying to find the current moment inside the static. Future's memory, a relocator who, dislocated, picks up a pen and tracks the time. Lines and little licks of lines. The rain drops its saliva as it sings the chorus, coated and scarved, carving with a penknife. Spit sways. Spit sways in a spiderweb hammock. And those shin freckles kicked from the forest floor make me think we are swapping the forest and I. Give, then take. The moss sighs in soft language. Little moisture, little friend. Who else am I exchanging with, and with what quality of care? Comforted to think you register my footfall in your soil, my weight's dim thrum-thrum. within soft cacophonies, piled in repetition across millennia, 4-footed, 2-footed, no-footed. In a forest of slither, everything is a desire path. How your conifer's crown feels eternal, even if falling, when you sap a pushing emotion inside me. Processional, part thorns and move into mud, balancing on bricks and sticks between mothering and mothers, discussing with a friend what we are and how we do it to others. The subject positions shift per step, but the swears and sex don't let up. It's a robust wood we create by walking it. And when a chitterer above chatters, even without looking up, I know who it is. You, forest, co-creator and narrator, are patient when, bleeding, I pack my nasal spaces with sphagnum. So staunched and cleaned with leaf, I feel the Anthropocene throb in me, as if the cure is in the matter. Opening the connection. Now it is raining down cedar brown, and the days will be for sweeping, raking my fingers through maddened hair. Other days, I dive, beeline down the deer path graffitied in Rossetti letters, while my legs walk. While I walk, my legs talk to people too far away to touch. The river is the reorganizer, the mental destimulator, atmospheric, elastic, causing all trails to lapse in ellipses. Silver circles, pretty portals reflecting a leap into the screen of the puddle or the phone to find you. Hand to heart. Every river is sometimes a pain port, yet we navigate towards pleasure. It's called sweet water, so let's focus on that. And the cottonwood fluff and the conifer's clouds of lime leaving my weave powdered in pollen. Cicadas, thin as a minute, mating and creaking and calling. My airborne seeds flicker. I keep checking for cars, but it's just rough blood in my head. On the current, the log boom surges, sending river crew tumbling, warm as dice from a cup. Not in any religious way, am wanting always companionship, omnipresent, available in all 4/8 of the day, am wanting a lichen spore witness to chant this idea here, behave this way there, and match me mote by mote. The closest to come is the ion in the green, pine sap inside my cheek, a comforting cedar needle in the gum. I practice standing in the copse, so when you, beloved, are silent and unforthcoming, I can tune myself by mirroring what I love most in the forest. Listening through small hollows, my satellite dishes fill with minutes durable as mayflies. And time slides down the trunk in a passel of slugs, a glistening pile of thick commas. I emerge and a year has passed, and am younger and older too. Direct sewing. Indoors all day counting light bulbs. Oculus, 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 umbilicus. The house sighs, puts hands on hips. An article about raised beds got me thinking about new lands inside me, places untheorized, to be devised, to test if what is within is what is without. I make a fist-wide trail of dirt through the kitchen, and it's yielding, but only if my body reassembles by the hour. Filching tastes from any plant, I snatch codes from under fingernail and grow the prose in shallow pots. Bent on building an overwinter garden, staking slow growth to the idea that relief is a path backwards and a map forward. Theorem, what is kind to the body is kinder to the woods. Thank you.
Thank you, Elee, for being a witness to the trees, and also a witness to the trees in a city that seems quite insistent on cutting down a lot of trees. 160,000 trees are coming out of Stanley Park over the next few years. So asserting where trees work with us and where we work with trees within our lives, like, is such an incredibly important moment. This morning I woke up in Haida-Gwaii, the first time I've ever been to Haida-Gwaii. We were visiting friends, so I read your book in that forest, which is one that's been transformed dramatically by colonialism, by logging, and also by deers, but it's really just an extraordinary place to be. So that's our final reader for this beautiful evening, and I think an evening that I'm going to carry forward with myself for a long time. I know all of the books are books that I'm going to return to many times. So I just, first of all, really want to thank Taryn, Jónína, Jenn, Danielle, George, Nicole, and Elee for their readings and for their work, particularly on May Day. Thank you for that poetic work. And thanks to all the talent, labor that goes into this. I know it very materially. Fabulous editors, and also the kind of community of care that Talon's been building over decades is extremely important to poetics in Canada. And I continue to hold on to a belief that poetry is a way to make us, that allows us to imagine another world. So thanks for everyone who is here in the room tonight. Thanks to people in the stratosphere. If we're all together, it would be lovely to have a beer with you. But for now, thanks and good night.